Welcome to Pieces for My Puzzle. I'm your host, Nikki Ship, and I'm excited to be sharing with you my life with a son on the spectrum. This podcast is for anyone who is looking for quick tips and perspective, but most of all, for hope and inspiration. So sit back, relax, and let's put the pieces together. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Pieces for My Puzzle. I'm your host, Nikki Ship. Thank you so much for joining us today. Last episode, we had the wonderful Carol Waldman on the show. If you didn't get a chance to tune into that episode, please do. We had a wonderful conversation about her son, Andrew, and his journey throughout high school and into college, and then eventually out into the career world. So thank you so much, Carol, for that conversation. I'm so grateful that we got the chance to talk and look forward to talking to you soon. This week, I am especially excited to have Miss Melissa Reiner on the show today. Melissa is a renowned autism consultant, educator, and speaker with over 20 years of experience supporting families, educators, and institutions. She is best known for her work as the autism consultant for the entire 8-year run of ABC's The Good Doctor, where she played a pivotal role in shaping the show's authentic portrayal of autism. Melissa has also consulted on major projects like Ghostbusters, The Afterlife, and Fox's Alert, bringing her expertise to the entertainment industry to raise awareness and understanding of autism. Melissa's journey began with her certification in relationship development intervention, which she later expanded upon by earning a master's in special education. She is the author of the acclaimed children's book Amy Amygdala and The Sleep Secret, a guide for new parents. Beyond her work in media, Melissa is a sought-after speaker, delivering transformative tools and techniques to schools, corporations, and families worldwide. Her revolutionary OGEC 4-step technique has empowered countless individuals to improve communication, overcome behavioral challenges, and build resilience. Melissa's passion for creating meaningful connections and fostering growth shines through in everything that she does. Whether she's consulting on a hit TV show, training parents, or speaking to global audiences, Melissa's mission is to inspire understanding, compassion, and authentic relationships. Please welcome Melissa to the show today. Thank you so much for being here, Melissa.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a
yes,
pleasure.
I've been so excited to have this conversation with you. You know, when we met several months ago and had our discovery call, I felt this instant connection to you. And I remember getting off that call going, I can't wait for my listeners to hear what an amazing individual you are and how much you've done to support the neurodiverse community. I'm just so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you again. It's appreciated.
Yes. Absolutely. So, you've had this incredible career, and I just, wanted to basically start off by asking, can you share with my listeners today how you got started in the field of autism consulting and what led you to work even in the entertainment industry?
Yeah, it all sort of fell in my lap. I was teaching and I was good at it, but I didn't love it. I didn't think it was really my calling. And I liked it, but it wasn't for me long term. And I have a niece who has something called Loeys-Dietz syndrome. Okay. It's a little bit like Marfan's. I don't know if you've ever heard. It's rare disorder.
Yeah, it's rare. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think like a few thousand people in the world have it. And so her mom, my sister-in-law at the time, she created this summer camp for kids who have special needs, who physical kids with, cerebral palsy, kids with autism, kids just and anyone and everyone who wanted a summer camp that was, while therapeutic, was not. It was, these kids are sometimes 20 hours of therapy a week, right? And it was really just to create friendships and to create an opportunity for joy and enjoyment of a summer camp experience. It was really beautiful. And she said, we need some camp counselors this summer. And as I was teaching, I had the summer free. And I said, I would love to help.
Right.
And at the time, and this was many, many, many years ago, I really didn't know that much about autism at all. And they paired me with a girl who had autism. And I didn't know what to expect. And she was amazing and wonderful. And I don't know what I thought, but I thought, oh, we're all just human beings, it turns out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and she needs support in different ways. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't really have any training. They gave like a weekend training. But one of the heads of the company saw me working with her and said, I think you're a natural. And I said, me? And she said, yeah, I think you've got something, you've got something here. And I thought, okay. So they started this year long, like during the school year, resource center for parents who could kind of a one-stop shop where they could really go
Wow.
and understand where all this was in Los Angeles, but where all the, you know, possible potential resources for, pediatricians who are developmental or neurological, developmental pediatricians or pediatric neurologists, and just, SLP, speech and language pathologists, OTs, the whole thing. And
Everything.
they had,
Yeah.
it was great to kind of give, here is a huge, volume of information
How
that
great
you
was
don't
that?
have to,
Yeah.
because these, parents are so overwhelmed, so overwrought, so stressed, and then they have to start on this other
Yeah.
journey that really isn't even, I mean, of course it's about their child, but now it's like, now I have to become a research scientist,
Yeah.
figure out who's who, what's what,
Yeah.
and it's overwhelming and exhausting.
Yeah.
And
No one tells you too that you have to do all of that when
yeah,
it's like when Drayson got approved for all of his service hours, I was like, great. And they're like, okay, now you got to go find providers. And I was like, what?
yeah,
I was like, what do you mean I have
yeah,
to find them? I have to. So I became a recruiter, on
yeah.
top of everything else. Yeah. So
Yeah, and you have to
100%.
become a recruiter, you have to
Yeah.
become an expert, and you're just trying to parent your child. So
Yeah.
it's super overwhelming, and really puts us at a disadvantage, because then we're forced to scramble, and then our child in a way kind of becomes like a pincushion. We're trying to figure out, like, which does this work? Does this, we're trying to figure out who's a good fit. And
Yes.
anyway, so she said, I'm gonna in the year-long program for in-school support for students as a one-on-one therapeutic companion, she put me in with this child who, would have slipped through the cracks because he was really quiet and really sweet,
Yeah.
and he was bright, but he socially, emotionally was suffering.
Yeah.
And when a school isn't trained to see that and doesn't need to look for that, because no one's turning,
Right.
tables over and throwing chairs across the room, so they seem to be doing well academically, they must be fine.
Yeah.
And that's a low bar.
Yeah.
And the truth is, most kids are not in school just for learning, which sounds
Yeah.
like what, Melissa? But it's
It's
true.
true. Yeah.
They're for the social emotional component of growth and progress in that
Yeah.
arena. And when it's missing, it's easy to miss it.
Yes.
And this child was exactly that child. And I, again, innately somehow, I don't know how, but somehow I sort of knew what he needed and how to help
Yeah.
him. And I'm so grateful that I've graduated so many families. I mean,
Yeah.
thousands of people. And
It's amazing.
I'm so grateful. And not everyone's a good fit for me. I'm not a good fit for everyone. But for the most part, I really am grateful to see success. And
Yeah.
I can never promise anything. That would be
Yeah.
unethical. But I really, people ask always when I start working with a family, how long does this take? And I'll say, well, like, I don't know is the
Yeah.
answer. I've worked with some families for years because I'm like the hairdresser they don't want to get rid of. And they're
Yeah.
like, we like having you around. We need you around. And
Yeah.
then there are families where, and this is rare, but on a few occasions, a family, there was literally not the, whatever, sort of inappropriate version of the word literal, but actually, literally,
Yeah.
the mom, when I arrived, had packed a suitcase, and she
Yeah.
was done. She was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go because I
Yeah.
can't do this anymore. And I talked her off the ledge. And
Yeah.
I said, you're welcome to take a weekend if you need a
Yeah.
weekend away, but we're not going to just pack up and leave the family.
Yeah.
I said, we're going to get you in with a therapist. We're going to, we're
Right.
going to work through this. We're not just going to become reactive, right? We're going to work through it. And that family in particular, and it was, again, an unusual, unique circumstance, but within 4 weeks, I don't know how, I mean, everyone just kind of worked together in
The
this really
synergy
profound.
happened. Yeah.
And in 4 weeks, I always say I'll be the first person to say it's a bad business model. My goal is to get me out of a family's life. Like that's the
Right.
goal, is to not be needed. Worst business model. I don't recommend it to anyone, but
Oh, no.
it is the goal.
Oh, yeah. And it's
within
always
4
hard when your
weeks,
providers leave, you know? I mean, especially when
yeah,
you have that connection and they've been with you for years. Yeah.
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 But that is the goal. The goal is,
Yeah.
how quickly can you get me out of your life because you don't need me? That's
Yeah.
what you want. And
Right.
you don't want someone for years if you don't need them.
Right.
And so it was 4 weeks. And I said, I feel like we kind of accomplished everything we wanted to accomplish, weirdly, in a very short amount of
Short period
time.
of time. Yeah.
And it worked out. And over the years, they may call me and say, we need a tune-up, and I'll come in for that. But
Yeah.
overall, that's how I actually started in this field. And then another child I was working with happened to be also utilizing this RDI technique, and I became intrigued by it and enamored with it, and saw how well it worked with this child. And I don't know what you know or don't know about it, but
I'm vaguely familiar with it. I actually started
yeah,
researching it when I saw that you were that you were certified in RDI, for our listeners, stands for Relationship Development Intervention. Correct? Is that the one
yeah,
you're talking
yes,
about? Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. I started going down that rabbit hole when I saw it. So,
It's really whole child centered. It's really, I work with the whole family. It's not just where I'm working with a child in another room and then bring him back to you and say good luck, because I
yeah.
think that's a
Yeah.
great way to set a family up for failure.
Yeah.
And if I don't know what you're doing and I'm not privy to it and I'm not really a part of it, a collaborator with this process,
Yeah.
I don't know how it can work. So like I said, I initially was in the classroom, and for a lot of classroom companions and aides, in some circumstances and in some circles, you're not allowed to actually communicate with the parents.
Yeah.
And that felt wrong to me because I could see what was working in the classroom, which is sometimes different than what works at home. But I still wanted to share that and to see what
Yes.
wasn't working. Because if we're all on a team together, how can we like tie our hands behind our back and make it harder?
Yeah.
So it never made sense to me. And I thought, I think I'm going to go out on my own.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to make sure that I'm in direct communication with families.
Yes.
So we're all partners. And
Yeah.
that has catapulted progress in
Yeah.
this amazing way.
It's amazing when you open up that line of communication that way too, because that was something that we fell victim to in Drayson's previous school that he's in, not the one that he's in now, but very same thing. Like we had certain providers that were working with him, but when it came down to the meetings, the IEP meetings, things like that, they weren't allowed in the room because they weren't considered certified teachers or they weren't considered, educators. And that was so hard for me because how was I supposed to get the inside glimpse and then make sure, because not everybody translates that properly, right? So it would get lost in transit and then I wouldn't know. And then I would hear after the fact. I even had an aide one time call me, a therapist call me and tell me that she was leaving the school and she wanted me to know. But that she also wanted me to, she wanted to let me know really what she saw because it wasn't getting translated to me.
No.
And I had a care team at home that I was trying to align with what we were doing at school. So there was all these inconsistencies that were happening. And the only
Yes.
thing it was doing was causing more anxiety for my son.
Yes.
And
And
it
for
is,
us.
and it was,
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I was probably in the fetal position, rocking myself, telling myself it would be okay,
Yeah.
but,
We'll get through it.
But the crazy part to me is that is one of the biggest flaws in the system.
Yes.
That I think that if that flaw alone was corrected within the system,
Oh my
what a
gosh.
huge difference that would make
Yeah.
for everybody across
I
the
agree.
board.
Yeah.
So I don't know why that has to be, or what has to be written, but whoever's listening, if they have the power to do that, it really should.
Do it.
There's the flaw. There's the
We
rewrite right
concur.
there.
Yes.
Yeah. We voted. That's what we need. So
Vote of 2, sold.
I know.
So
Yeah.
it is. It doesn't, it's so illogical. It makes no
It
sense
is. It
that we
makes no
would,
sense.
you're
Yeah.
with a child for 7 hours a day.
Yeah.
Sometimes 5 or 6, but about 7
Right.
hours a day, sometimes
Right.
more. And you can't find out about, I'm working with a family right now, and their child, they have this chart, which I'm not a fan of, where it just sort of checks off a box that
Yeah.
says he had inappropriate behavior. I'm like,
Yes.
okay, what did that look like?
What
When
was
did
it?
it occur? What precipitated that event?
Yep.
And how was it resolved? Or if it wasn't, why wasn't it?
Right.
Because if I don't know that information, I can't help him, and he can't help himself.
Right.
Right?
Especially when they don't have the communication skills. Like Jason,
100%.
the boy that you're describing, he was that quiet, shy boy, and I know he was starved for social and emotional. And it's funny because they even write social emotional goals in the IEPs, but they mean nothing. I'm sorry.
mean nothing.
They mean nothing.
No, let's say it, girl. Let's go.
There's no, I know. I'm like, this might
Let's
be
say
the
it.
episode.
Here we go.
No,
Buckle
but
in.
there's really, yeah, right. I'm like, my listeners are going to be like, well, she took a turn today. No, but it's true. It's for lack of better words, it's complete bullshit. It is.
Yeah.
It's like you
Preach.
read it and you're like, that's great, but so what does that mean? And it doesn't translate to anything but what's just written on paper, and it means nothing. And that's the part that really, really killed me for my son.
It's heartbreaking. And,
Yeah,
and
it's
sometimes
heartbreaking.
our children are not, as you said, like the
Yeah.
best source for information.
No.
And I don't know what I'm hearing, and I don't know what is really what happened or not. And it's not because my child's lying. It's because they're maybe confusing one circumstance with another. I mean, it can get
and they're
cloudy.
kids, like they're learning themselves. Like, how are they supposed to articulate some of these really, like, they're very complex things. How are they supposed to know? They
100%.
don't.
And sometimes I've seen situations where a child is sort of saying what they need, and they're
Yes.
saying, I'm struggling, I'm having a hard
Yes.
time, and it's really ignored, and then
Yeah.
they are pushed out. Like, my job is to push a child out of their comfort zone, for sure. I'm not there to make nice and to just play and have it be easy. The
Right.
goal is to push out of the comfort zone so that we can address those issues, build that grit and resilience.
Right.
But if we're pushing them over the edge,
Yes.
then because we're ignoring them or discounting them,
Yes.
then it's dangerous. I mean, it's really, that's when it becomes detrimental.
Yeah.
And again, it's teachers who are super well-meaning, who don't intend to, that's not what they want,
Right.
but nobody's communicating. So I can't give them tools that I know work at home that are effective, because they can't, I mean, it's bonkers. So.
Right. Well, and I've always said that too. Like, I have nothing but love for our educators. I taught in higher
100%.
I taught in higher education for a decade. I loved my students. I loved teaching. I loved doing that. I think what's hard is that it's a fine line, because I would always look at that in these rooms. I'd sit in these meetings and I would look at some of these educators going, they don't have tools and resources, because they're not being given tools and resources either. So they're only working with what they know.
Again,
And
one
they
hand
can't-
tied behind your back.
And no one from the top, or no one from of an area of influence is bringing that into the equation for some of these educators. And so I do feel for some educators, it's a huge disservice that they are not provided those things. And I think it's very hard to make that change.
Yes. And there's a reality where sometimes kids have a different aid every day.
Oh,
They have
yeah.
a different, or a few days with one person, and then, I mean, look, someone calls in sick. I get it. But
Right.
if it's super inconsistent, if it's consistently inconsistent,
Yeah.
how are we supposed to elicit change for the better for a
Right.
child?
And hold that expectation to them. It's so unreasonable, because then that demand doesn't go away. They
Correct.
still have those
Correct.
expectations. And so then that really, causes a lot of stress, undue stress and anxiety for that child, as well as for the parent. I mean, the amount of anxiety and panic attacks I feel like I've had sometimes coming out of these meetings, it's just crazy because then,
Yeah.
and I feel for both sides. I do. But at the same time, I'm like, someone's got to be able to hear my kid or see and really see my child the way I see my child.
Yes.
And that's the hard part. And I
That's
realize,
where I come in, right?
Yeah. You're like, that's where you're
what
like,
I do.
That's why I'm here. And I
Yeah.
think that that's such a beautiful gift that you offer to families because, when you really do, I've said this to other families and stuff that I've done within advocacy work too, like when you really see your child and you kind of let go of those things and you realize that there's a lot of potential there. Might not look the way that you want it to look, but it's there. It's like, well, are you willing to give that up?
Right.
And that's the part that kept me going because I wasn't willing to give that up.
Good for you.
I wasn't willing to give that up. So tell me a little bit now. You were the autism consultant on the show The Good Doctor.
Yeah.
And so that must have been an extraordinary experience for you.
It was such a gift. It was one of the finest, highest quality experiences I've ever had. And I think people have described the show as a bit of a unicorn because I think everyone working on it, especially, David Shore, who's happens to be one of the kindest, most incredible people like on the planet, period, all full stop. He was, I believe, the pillar and the guiding force behind the energy that was surrounding the show. So everyone working on the show was gracious and kind. And I think that's probably not always the case in Hollywood. And I don't know, but that's what I've heard. But this was pretty extraordinary and unique in that, honestly, every single person from writer, producer, director, actor, everyone on the crew was gracious and just in it for the right reasons. They were, I think everyone knew we were a part of a special experience. And we had, I think, a unique mission to honor this journey and this portrayal. And everyone was really just incredible. So it was a great experience. So I was working with a family years ago, grateful to have graduated our work with their child. And both of the parents happened to be in different factions, but producers in Hollywood. And one of them called me again. It was a few years after we had completed our work. And they said, they're doing this show, they're writing this show, they're creating a pilot. And it's funny because I didn't have a TV at the time. I have a big one here, but and the only show I had ever watched and loved was House. So I knew at the end where it said like Shoresy Productions, I was like, oh, David Shore, his name. It was like the only show I had ever really. And so the parents said, they're doing this show and the showrunner is David Shore. Are you familiar? And I was like, he's the only one I'm familiar with. So weirdly, yes, I do.
Wow.
Have some familiarity. And so they said, well, would you consider meeting with them on the Sony lot? And I thought, well, let me think about that. Yes. So yes. I'll be there now. Do you need me there now? I was like, of course. Let me think about it. No, I'm there. And so
let me look at my schedule and I'll let you know.
Let me decide if I'll deign to, and I had 3 little kids. I was newly divorced and I don't share this with many people. At the time, I was on food stamps. I was really struggling and I didn't know what was going to come of it. And I wasn't meeting them. I wasn't a paid experience. It was just, they said, would you like? And we set a date and a time and I went in my little Honda Odyssey, my family car, with 3 kids, you got to have it.
Sporting it in the minivan.
I was rocking it. And I drive onto the Sony lot and I'm so excited and nervous and thrilled. And it was supposed to be a 30-minute meeting. And you may have surmised already, I'm a talker, but I don't know if you can tell. But I am. And I met with also Aaron Gunn, who is another producer on the show. And the two of them were so, again, I didn't know what to expect.
Right.
Hollywood, highfalutin. They were so down to earth and so lovely. And so, again, I think I keep using the word gracious,
Yeah.
but it was such an enjoyable experience. And I shared with them about my work, what I do, how I do it. And
Wow.
it was about, I think it was like almost 3 hours later, I said, I have to go pick up my kids from school. So I have to go. I gotta go. Sorry to cut the meeting short, folks, and so I left and they said, maybe we'll be in touch. But they thanked me and it was it.
Yeah.
And that was all I knew. Well, I think it was maybe 7 or 9 months later, I get a call that the project for The Good Doctor was greenlit. And
Wow.
they call me and they said, so we were wondering, Freddie Highmore is English
Yeah.
and lives, I think, in London proper. And they said, do you know of anyone in London who does what you do and could meet with him? And we would, fly them out. And I said, oh, I do. It's me. And they said,
Good for you.
no, maybe you didn't hear me. We were thinking of someone who's already. Do you know someone in England? And I said, "Yep, it's me.
It's me.
It's just me, and it's the only person on the planet. So I'll go wherever you need me to go." And
Wow.
they said, "No, you don't have to." I said, "No, I mean," and remember me saying at the time I had nothing
Yes.
financially to support. And I said, I'll fly out tomorrow. I was going to beg, borrow, and steal, not steal, but I was going to
Yeah.
beg and borrow,
Yeah.
max out a credit card, do whatever I had to do. I said, I will book a flight tonight. I'll
Wow.
be there whenever you need me. And they said, okay, we feel you. Hang on and we'll get back to you. And then they worked out his schedule and they flew me to Vancouver where they filmed the show.
Okay.
And for the pilot episode, I was able to meet a lot of the actors. I worked directly with the director at the time of that first episode and David. And at one point, we were leaving like the little kitchenette area, David Shore.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I'm next to him. And I put my hand on his shoulder. I said, I want you to know I'm really proud of you. And he looked at me and I said, you probably don't need me to be proud of you, but I am. And
Yeah.
he said, no, I do appreciate it. He was such a kind soul.
Yeah.
He's such a sweetheart and like genuinely
Yeah.
and so gifted and
Yeah.
talented. And so I got to work directly with Freddie Highmore and some of the other actors
Oh,
and
how
all the
extraordinary.
writers. It was amazing. And then I worked remotely with them for the entire 8 years. So I could also be with my children
Right.
and watch them grow up.
Yes.
And yeah. And so I would get scripts. I would get an outline usually and then a script.
Okay.
And sometimes I'm so grateful to say they would rewrite like an entire ending of a scene based on my
Right.
input. And that's really rewarding. That feels
Yeah.
really
Oh, yeah.
exciting. So it was just amazing.
How wonderful to also just to be valued in a way as an expert in your field,
Yeah.
where they really took your advice to heart and they didn't make it maybe that, quote unquote, Hollywood, script by
Yeah.
taking your advice, What was it like working with Freddie?
I feel like I'm on a broken record.
Yeah.
You couldn't meet a more down to earth,
Yeah.
sweet, kind hearted
Yeah.
human being who
Yeah.
is unbelievably gifted as an
Yeah.
actor, as a human being. He is just,
Yeah.
I just was so impressed with him and I appreciated
Yeah.
him. He was so appreciative of me. And so I'm going to use this a thought. He was so gracious. He was so,
Mm-hmm.
everyone was so lovely. It's
Yeah.
like unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it was
Well,
such
and
a pleasure.
I can, and honestly, Melissa, I have to tell you, I think I shared this with you when we had our discovery call, but after I saw the first episode, I cried, and I remember telling my husband at the time, I told him, I was like, if I ever meet Freddie, I want to hug this man, because it just hit me to my core,
Yeah.
but it also it makes me emotional to say this, that I knew that my child could be capable of doing a lot of things. Sorry.
Yes.
I didn't think
Don't
I was getting
apologize.
emotional, but it made me realize that Jason could. And watching those, I mean, I think I cried almost every episode because I would see something he would do and I'd be like, oh my God, okay, yay, there's the win. And here he is as this doctor, but yet we're still looking at those wins for him. At least that's how I felt when I was watching the show. And so, and at the time, Jason was little. He just recently turned 14. But, he was little. And I just remember, because he was newly diagnosed and, it's all the worry and the fear and the unknowns and you're not sure how what are you going to do? How are you going to find all these things? And I remember watching it going, I think that is it was so spot on for me. And, so I really commend you for the work that you did on that show because, well, at least with me, you hit this one. So
Girl, let me tell you, I read every single word of every single script. And when I watched it, I cried. I don't think there was an episode I didn't cry in. I mean, it was rare. And I was like, I know what's happening. Why am I crying? But I was like, that's amazing, or heartbreaking. And I was like, I read it and partially helped, change the wording. And it was, I would cry at every single episode. It was just beautiful.
It always bring tears to my eyes and I couldn't wait to watch it. And I was like, I just felt like it was such a breakthrough too for the neurodiversity community to show that this population is capable and able, whether they become something as, whether it's working from construction to becoming doctors or lawyers, like there's so much capability in what this population can do.
1,000%.
So it just gave me such hope. Like, I was like, well, maybe someday he'll graduate high school. And I remember after watching that, I was like, nope, we're going to go to college. Like, I was like, there's hope. And so I just, it struck such a chord with me. And I've seen lots of other shows that portray this. I think the only other one that has really resonated with me was Jay Silverman's film Camera, the film he produced. I think it came out 2 or 3 years ago, and that was another one that really hit home with me about the observance of a special needs child, and what that was like. And so I have to tell you, I commend you for all of your hard work and dedication on that because it was truly extraordinary for me to watch.
Thank you. It was an honor.
What do you think is important for, we just have a few more minutes on this episode, and for our listeners, we are going to do a part 2 with Melissa. But, what do you think it's important for the media to accurately, I guess, represent autism or the neurodivergent community? And, what impact do you think that, this will have on public awareness?
And I think to your point, when this show first came out, it was the only show or representation of someone not just in the familial scope, but out in the workforce with their ability to create relationships outside of being a child in a home. And that adult perspective of being in a career, having a career, having friends, and navigating through that it was monumental, right?
Yeah.
And I think the biggest, and there's so much good coming out in social media about here's what autism is, but I think that I'm working on helping people who are hiring, and people who are in the workforce with individuals with a diagnosis, so that they have tools to navigate through any challenge that may arise. And I think that is the next big focus. It has to be, because so something I just read was like, we grow up and we become adults, right? Like it's like, we're not just children. So there are so many opportunities for people it's everything about becoming educated, to really gain awareness and to really harness a set of tools that any person who works with someone, who is the boss of someone, who works under someone who has autism, so there are so many layers of nuanced relationship-based interactions. And it just requires a ton of education. And yet I always say it's a 180-degree shift, but it's a small step. It's not a big step, but it is a big shift. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not asking a lot of people, but the thing I'm asking, it takes some you got to be willing,
You got to be willing. Yeah, I always tell people, if you can keep an open mind and be willing to kind of, because it is uncomfortable, right? Making a shift or making that, like, if you can keep an open mind, it's worth it.
And also it's not a one size fits all. Like you could have 50 people in a room with a diagnosis of ASD, and you have 50 unique individuals.
Yeah. The saying, you've met one person with autism, you've literally met one person with autism. Yeah, and that's it. Yeah.
And that's it. And so if you can't just try to apply this
you can't box them into,
you can't, and I'll just do this and that'll work.
Right.
No, it's because, and the bottom line is it's human interaction. Yeah. Like I said, when my first interaction was, we're all just, it's not some otherness. It's all of us.
Right.
Yeah.
And formulating those connections. Yeah.
Yes. Wow. That's everything.
Wow. Well, we're going to continue on to part 2 for next week. But for those of you listening, Melissa, thank you so much for being on the show today. I can't tell you how much I so much enjoy our conversations. I feel like we could just keep talking for hours. So we'll resume for sure next week. So, but this concludes our episode for today. If you have questions, comments, or even a show topic that you would like to hear about, please feel free to send me an email at info@piecesformypuzzle.com. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram if you have not done so already, or feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you like what you're hearing, please spread the word so that we can continue to empower autism families, and feel free to give us a good rating on your preferred podcast platform of choice. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, keep working on your puzzle, and remember, you don't have to have it all solved in a day. Take care.